I never used to put much thought into dreams. My sister Ellie was always the one who remembered hers. Detailed, strange things that she'd write down in a little notebook she kept beside her bed. I'd wake up most mornings with nothing but fog in my head, while she'd be halfway through describing something about fields or rivers or people with faces she didn't recognize. It was her thing. But that changed around early spring 2 years ago, when I started having the same dream she did. In the dream, we were walking down a dirt road that seemed to stretch forever, lined with black trees that didn't make a sound. There were no stars, no wind, just the crunch of gravel under our shoes. At the end of the road stood a house. It was 2 stories, painted a faded, flaking blue, the kind you see on old farmhouses long forgotten by time. The porch leaned forward, like the whole place was bowing under its own weight. And in the upstairs window, always the same one, right above the front door, a woman stood watching us through lace curtains. The first time I saw her, I woke up in a cold sweat. Ellie was sitting up in her bed across the room, breathing hard, her eyes wide. Before I could say anything, she whispered, "You saw her too." It happened again the next night. The same road, the same silence, the same woman staring out from that window. Only this time, she was closer, not just a figure behind the curtain, but someone I could almost make out. I remember her hair was dark, maybe gray, hanging over her shoulders. I couldn't see her face clearly, but something about her posture felt wrong. She wasn't standing like a person watching from curiosity. It was more like expectation, like she knew we'd come back. After 3 nights of that, Ellie said she couldn't take it anymore. She'd drawn a picture of the house right down to the pattern on the lace curtains. "It feels real," she told me, "like it's out there somewhere." I tried to laugh it off, said it was just stress or one of those freaky coincidences. But when I looked at her sketch, I got this tightness in my chest. It looked exactly like the place in my dreams, every warped plank, every crooked shutter. The next afternoon, she showed up at my apartment with a map. "Just drive," she said. "You'll see." We headed out of town, past the gas station, then another 10 miles down a winding stretch that cut through the woods. She told me to keep turning whenever the road split. Somehow she just knew where to go. The sky was gray that day, heavy with spring rain. The air smelled like wet earth. And then, like stepping straight into a memory, we saw it. The dirt road curved between 2 dead oaks, and there it was, the blue house. Sagging, half swallowed by weeds, its porch tilted toward the ground. The paint peeled in long strips that fluttered in the breeze. And the window, the upstairs window, had lace curtains moving softly, as if someone had just stepped away. Ellie froze, gripping my arm. "That's it," she whispered. I remember sitting there in silence, staring at that house until my heartbeat slowed. I didn't want to get out of the car. There was something about the air around it, a kind of stillness that pressed against your chest, like the woods themselves were holding their breath. But Ellie opened her door before I could stop her. The porch creaked under her weight, boards groaning like something waking up. I stayed by the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. She peered through the dusty window by the door. "It's empty," she said. "I think—" Her voice trailed off. "What?" I asked. "I think someone's upstairs." I didn't see anyone, just the shifting curtains. But something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. I called for her to come back, and after a moment she did. She looked pale, distant. The whole ride back, she kept glancing at the rearview mirror, like she expected to see something following us. That night, I didn't dream of the house. Ellie did. She called me in the morning, her voice shaky. "She was closer this time," she said. She smiled at me. I never used to remember my dreams. My sister Ellie did, though. She'd wake up every morning talking about them, long winding stories filled with places she'd never been and people she didn't know. She even kept a little notebook by her bed where she'd write them down before breakfast. I used to tease her for it, saying dreams were just brain static, leftover noise from a tired mind. She'd just smile and say, "Sometimes dreams remember you back." I didn't think much of that until the spring 2 years ago, when I started having one of hers. It began simple. I was standing on a narrow dirt road that wound through the woods, the trees so tall they blocked out the moon. The world was gray and hushed, the kind of silence that feels alive. Ellie was beside me, her hand cold in mine. Ahead of us, at the end of the road, stood a house. Two stories. Faded blue paint peeling off the boards, a porch that leaned forward like it wanted to whisper something, and in the upstairs window, always the same one right above the front door, stood a woman behind lace curtains watching us. The first night I dreamed it, I woke up shaking. My clock read 3:06 a.m. Ellie was staying over that night. She'd fallen asleep on the couch. I went to check on her, and before I could say anything, she looked up at me with wide eyes and said, "You saw her too, didn't you?" That was the start of it. For 3 nights straight, we had the same dream. The same road, the same house, the same silent woman in the window. Each night the dream went a little further. The first night we only saw her from the road. The second, we made it to the porch. And the third, we heard the front door creak open. When I woke up that morning, Ellie was already sitting at the table, sketching furiously in her notebook. She turned it toward me, a rough charcoal drawing of the house. Every detail matched. The warped porch, the missing shingles, the curtains. It sent a chill through me. I hadn't described it to her. "It feels real," she said quietly, "like it's out there somewhere." I told her it was just a coincidence, that we'd both seen some old farmhouse on a drive once and forgotten it. But she didn't believe that. Ellie had this intensity about her. When something got stuck in her mind, she couldn't let it go. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment with a folded paper map. "I think I found it," she said. She'd traced roads through the hills west of town, a cluster of rural routes where cell service dropped out. There was an unmarked turnoff she circled in red ink. "It's not on GPS," she said. "But look, this road runs through an old homestead area. Maybe it's still there." I didn't want to go, but she looked desperate, hollow-eyed from lack of sleep. She said she wouldn't rest until she saw it for herself. So we went. We drove for over an hour into the hills. The pavement gave way to gravel, then dirt. The trees got denser, the air heavier. Ellie sat forward in her seat the whole time, scanning the roadside like she was waiting for something familiar. When we passed between 2 dead oaks, she grabbed my arm. "Stop, right there." The dirt road narrowed and curved left, and at the end of it, half swallowed by weeds and vines, was the blue house. It looked exactly like it did in the dream. Paint flaking, porch sagging, windows clouded with dust. The front yard was choked with tall grass. And there, in the upstairs window, the lace curtains fluttered gently, though there wasn't a hint of wind. My stomach turned over. The air around the house felt wrong, thick, like standing underwater. The woods were silent. No birds, no insects. Ellie stepped out of the car before I could stop her. The boards creaked under her boots as she climbed the porch. I stayed by the car, watching her peer through the front window. "It's empty," she said. Then she looked up toward the second story and whispered, "She's there." I followed her gaze. For half a second I thought I saw movement, just the curtain shifting, but nothing else. When Ellie turned back, her face was pale. We didn't go inside. We stood there for maybe another minute, the air so still it felt like time had stopped. Then Ellie said, "We should go." Neither of us spoke on the drive back. I caught her looking in the rearview mirror more than once, though, like she expected something to be following us. That night, I didn't dream of the house, but Ellie did. She called me at 3:30 a.m., crying. She was closer this time, she whispered. She smiled at me. I told her to come stay with me again, and she did. But her sleep got worse. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, mumbling that the woman was whispering something. One night I found her standing in the hallway, eyes open but blank, sleepwalking. She was facing the window, whispering, "She's waiting." I didn't tell her, but after that night, I started having the dream again, too. Only this time, I wasn't outside looking at the house. I was inside. The wallpaper was yellowed and curling. The air smelled like mold and old perfume. I heard footsteps overhead, slow and deliberate. When I looked up, I saw shadows moving across the ceiling, like someone pacing in the room above me. When I told Ellie, she went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "She wants us to come back." I told her absolutely not. I begged her to forget it. She nodded, said she would, but I knew she wouldn't. A week later, she was gone. Her car was found parked on that same dirt road, half a mile from the house. The driver's door was open. Her purse was still inside. No sign of a struggle. Just tire tracks ending in the mud and the sound of rain starting to fall. The sheriff's office searched the woods for 3 days. Nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no trace. When they questioned me, I told them about the dreams, about the house. But the look they gave me said they didn't believe a word. "People get turned around in these woods," one deputy said. "Sometimes they just don't come back." I tried to move on. I really did. I moved to a different town, got a new apartment, but the dreams followed me. They changed, though. I wasn't walking the dirt road anymore. I was standing at the foot of the blue house looking up. The woman was still there, but she wasn't alone. There was someone beside her now, a second shape in the window, smaller, familiar. The first time I saw it, I woke up screaming. I told myself it wasn't Ellie, that it couldn't be, but every time after that, the second figure looked more like her. Months went by. Then, one night in late October, I woke to a sound, soft tapping on my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. The sound was steady, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. The air in my apartment felt heavy, like the night itself was holding its breath. I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but I could see their outline moving, slightly, as if something was brushing against them from the outside. For almost a full minute, I didn't move. Then the tapping stopped. The next morning, when I finally worked up the nerve to look, there were 3 faint handprints on the glass. Small, smudged. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. But exhaustion always wins. The dream came again the next time I closed my eyes. The road was the same, but the air felt colder. When I reached the house, the front door was already open. I stepped inside. The floor groaned under my feet. Dust hung thick in the air, glittering in faint light from the window. Somewhere upstairs I heard a woman humming, a low, tuneless sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. I followed it up the stairs. Every step creaked. When I reached the top, the humming stopped. The hallway stretched ahead, narrow and dark. A single door at the end stood slightly open. I could see lace curtains moving inside. I pushed the door open. The room was empty, just a wooden rocking chair by the window. The curtains shifted, though there was no wind. And on the wall beside the chair, someone had drawn a small, uneven handprint in charcoal. Then, from the corner of the room, I heard Ellie's voice. "She's waiting." I turned, and for the first time, I saw the woman clearly. Her hair hung in long, tangled strands. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes, God, her eyes, looked like they hadn't seen light in years. And she was smiling. Not wide, not exaggerated, just enough to make it wrong. Behind her, half hidden in the dark, stood Ellie. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. The woman lifted a finger and pointed toward the window. I looked. Outside, on the dirt road below, I saw myself standing there, staring up at the house. That's when I woke up. It's been 6 months since then. I moved again, this time across the state. I don't talk about Ellie anymore. Her case went cold, and people stopped asking. But every so often, I still wake up at 3:06 a.m., my heart pounding. And sometimes when I look out my window, I swear I see a house sitting at the edge of the woods. Blue paint, faded by time, lace curtains gently moving in the upstairs window. And if I stare long enough, I can see them. 2 figures standing there side by side, watching, waiting for me to come home. Back in 2011, I was 23 and broke, driving down through Kentucky with my friend Caleb to pick up an old truck he bought from some guy online. We'd been on the road since early morning, cutting through mountain passes and hollowed valleys that looked like something out of a postcard. But by the time night fell, the rain started, heavy, fast, and relentless. The kind of rain that makes the wipers useless no matter how fast they go. The fog rolled in too, thick enough that we could barely see the road signs. We passed through a string of small towns, each one darker and emptier than the last, until finally the road narrowed to a single lane lined with pine. That's when we saw the light. a flickering neon sign that read Evergreen Motor Lodge, vacancy. The place looked like it hadn't seen business in years. Half the sign didn't even light up. The lot was cracked and slick with rain, puddles reflecting that dying red glow. There were 8 rooms, maybe 10, all with doors facing the parking lot. A single office at the end had its light on. Caleb pulled in while I checked the time, 11:42 p.m. Inside the office, a man sat behind the counter. Mid-60s gray hair, red flannel shirt. He looked up from a small TV as we came in. "Rough night to be on the road," he said. His accent was thick, Appalachian, but worn flat by age. "Only got 2 rooms open tonight. End units. You boys passing through?" "Yeah," Caleb said. "Headed south." The man nodded, took cash only, handed us an old brass key with a green tag labeled Room 7. His hands were pale and dry, knuckles swollen. "Try to stay inside once you get settled," he said quietly. "Wind carries strange things on nights like this." I thought he was just being folksy, but Caleb went still for a moment before giving a tight nod. We made our way down to the room, the rain hammering our jackets. The door stuck before it opened, wood swollen from humidity. The smell hit us immediately, mildew, dust, and something faintly sour like wet carpet that never dried. The room was small, 2 twin beds, a little table, a flickering lamp, and a bathroom with a cracked mirror. Caleb tried to make a joke about it, but his laugh came out thin. We were too tired to care. We laid out our bags, kicked off our boots, and sat on the edge of our beds, listening to the rain hit the roof in heavy bursts. I remember thinking how strange it was that there were no other cars in the lot. No noise from any other rooms. Just us in the rain. Around midnight, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. Caleb muttered something about old wiring and turned off his lamp. The room went black except for the glow from the parking lot light seeping in through the curtains. I drifted off listening to the wind outside, half asleep, half aware of the storm shaking the glass. At some point, I woke up, or thought I did. The first thing I noticed was that I couldn't move. Not an inch. My eyes were open, but my body felt locked in place. I could see the ceiling above me, faint shadows moving across it like waves of darkness. The rain had stopped. The only sound was a low creak, like something shifting its weight across the floorboards. Then came the sound that still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. The slow drag of nails across the carpet. Long scraping sounds just outside the door. I couldn't see the door from where I lay, but I could hear it clearly. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. I tried to call out to Caleb, but my throat wouldn't work. My chest felt like a weight was pressing down on it. I could hear something moving, not walking, but crawling. The sound grew closer. Then, beneath the thin slit under the door, I saw movement. Long, bony fingers curling against the carpet, pale and wet, dragging themselves into the room inch by inch. The air turned ice cold. The smell hit next, damp, earthy, like something that had been buried for too long. I could see the outline of it now, rising up slowly beside the far bed. It didn't have a shape that made sense. Thin arms, a low hunched back, hair hanging in strands. I wanted to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. All I could do was watch as it leaned toward Caleb's bed. I heard a soft sound, almost a whimper, and then silence. The thing paused. Its head, or what I thought was its head, turned toward me. Even in the dark, I felt its attention, the kind of awareness that cuts through you like a blade. My body convulsed once, and then nothing. The next thing I remember was gasping awake, drenched in sweat, the room empty and gray with morning light. Caleb was already sitting up, staring at me. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. Before I could say a word, he whispered, "You saw it too?" We didn't talk much after that. We packed our stuff, didn't even check out. When I looked toward the office, the light was off. No sign of the old man. The road back to the highway was muddy, and neither of us spoke the whole way. We stopped at a gas station maybe 20 miles out. Caleb got out first, limping slightly. I asked him what was wrong. He just lifted the cuff of his jeans. 3 deep scratches raked down his ankle. They weren't bleeding, but the skin was torn in narrow, perfect lines. He said he didn't remember getting them. I wanted to laugh it off, tell him it was from the old bed frame or something, but the words wouldn't come. I was too busy thinking about those fingers dragging across the carpet. We didn't mention it again for the rest of the drive. When I dropped him off that evening, He said he was fine, but he looked pale, distant. That night when I got home, I tried to convince myself it was sleep paralysis, that the storm, the exhaustion, the smell of mildew, all of it had gotten into my head. I told myself that until I finally fell asleep. Then I felt it again, that cold brush against my feet. I woke with a start, staring into the dark. My room was silent, but my blanket had slipped halfway down the bed. I sat up, heart hammering. The air smelled faintly of rain. When I reached to turn on the lamp, something soft shifted at the end of the mattress, the unmistakable dip of weight settling, slow and deliberate. I froze. I remember every second after that. The creak of the bed springs, the faint scrape of something dragging across the floor. I couldn't see it, only feel it there, just beyond reach. I whispered Caleb's name without thinking, even though I was hundreds of miles away from him. The next morning, I found 3 scratches on my own ankle. Caleb stopped answering my calls a few weeks later. His sister told me he'd moved out of state. Said he was trying to get away from bad dreams. She didn't elaborate and I didn't ask. But sometimes when I check my voicemail, I swear I hear something on the line, faint breathing, static, and what sounds like dragging. I've stayed in dozens of hotels and motels since then, but no matter where I go, every now and then, I wake up at 3 a.m. to that same sound, nails brushing across the carpet. Sometimes from the hallway, sometimes from under the bed, and each time it feels a little closer. I was 12 when the dream started. At first, I thought it was just me. Nightmares brought on by too many Sunday sermons and ghost stories traded behind the church. But then the others started having them too. There were 8 of us in the youth group, all kids who'd grown up in the same tiny mountain town, all used to hearing the wind howl through the hollers at night. Yet this was different. We were all dreaming of the same thing, being trapped in the old church basement, lights flickering overhead, and somewhere in the dark, someone was crying. Not screaming, not talking, just soft, steady sobs echoing through the cold. The church was an old white wooden building sitting on the edge of a valley outside of Boone County. It had been there for over 100 years, built by hand back when the town was little more than a mining camp. The basement was used mostly for storage, stacks of hymnals, broken folding chairs, old banners from church picnics long gone. It always smelled like dust and damp earth, like the ground itself was breathing down there. Every night for nearly 2 weeks, I'd wake up at 3:17 a.m., drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. The same dream every time. I'd be standing at the bottom of the basement steps, staring into the dark while a light bulb overhead flickered weakly. Then I'd hear the crying. It always came from behind me, somewhere deep in the shadows. Sometimes it sounded close, sometimes far. I'd turn, and just before I could see who it was, I'd wake up. It wasn't until youth group one Wednesday evening that I realized I wasn't alone. During snack time, our friend Mason looked pale and tired. When I asked if he was okay, he said, "I can't sleep. I keep dreaming about the basement." Everyone went quiet. Then Emily, the pastor's daughter, and said, "The one with the crying?" We all froze. One by one, each of us admitted we'd been having the same dream. When we told Pastor Graham, he didn't look surprised. He just rubbed the back of his neck and said, "Sometimes the Lord lets our fears take form. Maybe you all been spending too much time telling ghost stories." He told us to pray before bed, to cast away dark thoughts. We nodded, but none of us believed him. The next night, the dream came again. The worst part wasn't the crying anymore. It was the sense that whoever was making that sound knew we were there. Like the crying was just a way to draw us closer. The following Sunday, after the main service, Pastor Graham asked us to help clean up the basement before the spring revival. We all went down there, our footsteps echoing on the concrete. The place felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was thick. Mason started stacking chairs against the far wall, and that's when he stopped and said, "What's this?" Behind a row of dusty metal folding chairs was something I'd never noticed before. A wooden door. Small, about 4 feet high, made of rough planks nailed together. It sat flush against the foundation, so old it was almost the same color as the concrete. Pastor Graham saw it and froze. "Leave that be," he said sharply. "That door's not meant to be opened. Where does it go?" Emily asked. He hesitated. "Nowhere. It's just part of the old structure. Forget you saw it." But that only made us more curious. Later that afternoon, after everyone left, Mason texted me and said, "Meet me at the church." I told him he was crazy, but I went anyway. When I got there, he'd already pried the lock off the door with a screwdriver. "I just want to see," he said. When he opened it, a wave of cold air rolled out, colder than anything I've ever felt. The smell that came with it was strange, like wet stone and rust. Inside, there was a staircase made of wood and earth, leading straight down into blackness. No lights, no sound, just darkness that felt thick like it swallowed everything. We stood there listening. Then faintly from somewhere below came the sound of dripping water. And underneath that, the sound of crying. We both bolted. I didn't stop running until I was halfway home. That night, I didn't tell anyone what we'd done. But when I finally fell asleep, the dream came again. Only this time it felt different. The air in the basement was colder, heavier, and the crying wasn't behind me anymore. It was right next to me. I could feel the breath of it against my ear. When I woke up, I was crying too, my pillow soaked through. The next day at school, Mason didn't show up. Neither did Emily. By that evening, my mom got a call from Pastor Graham asking if I'd heard from them. They'd gone missing sometime during the night. Their cars were still in their driveways. The police searched the woods behind the church for 2 days. Nothing. They said maybe the kids ran away. But everyone in town knew they wouldn't. For weeks after that, the church felt different. Services went quiet. The air in the sanctuary seemed to hum with unease. The congregation prayed harder, sang louder, but it didn't change the heaviness that lingered. And for the rest of us in the youth group, the dreams kept coming. But now, when we dreamed of the basement, the crying had changed. It wasn't just a single voice anymore. There were two. One night, about a month later, I woke at 3:17 as usual. Only this time I wasn't dreaming. I could hear something downstairs. Our house was old and the floors creaked, but this sound was different. Slow, dragging footsteps, moving from the kitchen toward my room. I sat up listening, heart pounding. Then came the soft sound of crying. Faint, almost like it was coming from under the floorboards. I pressed my ear to the floor. The sound was clearer there, a child's sobs low and broken. Then a voice whispering my name. I jumped back and turned on every light in the room. My parents came running, thinking someone had broken in, but the house was empty. Nothing but silence. After that, my mom made me sleep in their room for a week. The crying stopped for a while. Then, slowly, one by one, the rest of the youth group said their dreams had ended. Everyone except me. I tried everything. Sleeping pills, prayer, even moving my bed to the other side of the room. But no matter what I did, the dream kept coming. Sometimes I'd wake up standing beside my closet, unsure how I got there. Once I woke up in the basement of our house barefoot, the concrete floor wet beneath me. Years went by. I left town, went to college, tried to forget. The church eventually closed. Too few members, too many bad memories. They said the building was condemned after part of the basement flooded. But whenever I drove through Boone County, I'd catch sight of that white steeple in the distance. Half sunk into the trees, about 3 years ago, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from since back then. Emily's younger brother, Sam. He told me the old church was being torn down. Said they'd found something strange when the crew broke through the basement wall. An empty space, he said. Like another room that shouldn't have been there. He asked if I wanted to come see. I told him no. But that night I dreamed again. I was standing at the top of the basement stairs looking down into the dark. The air smelled of wet earth. I could hear the crying and soft steady. And underneath it something else. A faint voice whispering, "You left us." When I woke up, I was on my floor, hands covered in dirt. Now I live hundreds of miles away. My house is new, modern, no basements, no creaking floors. But every once in a while, late at night, I'll wake up at exactly 3:17 a.m. and hear a sound. Faint, distant but unmistakable, somewhere beneath me. In the quiet of the earth, someone is crying again. And if I listen too long, I start to hear my name. I moved into that apartment complex the summer I turned 24, right after getting my first real job. It wasn't much to look at. A squat, L-shaped building tucked behind a gas station off the main highway, with flaking beige paint and the faint smell of damp carpet in the hallways. But the rent was cheap, the neighbors seemed quiet, and after years of living with roommates, I was just happy to have a place of my own. The first few weeks were uneventful. I worked, came home, watched TV, and tried to ignore the faint hum of the old refrigerator that never quite shut up. The walls were thin enough that I could hear the pipes groan when someone upstairs took a shower, and sometimes the faint rhythm of footsteps pacing above me at night. The neighbors were friendly enough, an older couple in 2B, a grad student named Chelsea across the hall, and a guy called Miguel who smoked on the balcony and listened to the radio late into the night. Everything felt normal until the first time it happened. It was a Wednesday night in early October. I remember because it had rained all day and the courtyard was still glistening from the streetlights. I went to bed around midnight, the steady sound of dripping water lulling me to sleep. The next thing I remember was being somewhere else, outside, sitting cross-legged on the cool pavement of the courtyard. The other tenants were there too, forming a circle around a small fire in the middle. Nobody said a word. The fire burned high but gave off no heat at all, and the shadows it cast were strange, stretching and twisting too slowly, like syrup in water. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. Then all at once I was awake again, gasping in my bed, heart hammering. I looked at the clock. 2:44 a.m. Exactly. The next morning, while grabbing my mail, I ran into Chelsea. She looked as pale and tired as I felt. Without much thought, I said, "Weird question. Did you have a strange dream last night?" She stopped mid-step and stared at me. "Were you in the courtyard?" That's how it started. By that evening, we'd realized that everyone, every single person in the building, had woken up at the same time from the same dream. We even compared details. The circle, the fire, the silence, all identical. It became a joke at first. "Guess it's haunted," Miguel said with a grin, flicking his cigarette off the railing. "Maybe we should start charging rent to the ghost." We all laughed, but no one really found it funny. Night after night, it happened again. Always at 2:44 a.m., always the same circle, the same fire that didn't burn, the same numb stillness. Then, after about a week, something new appeared. When I woke up, I found gray ash on the balcony, thin streaks of it near the sliding door, like something had been burning out there during the night. Chelsea had the same thing. So did the couple in 2B. We tried to come up with explanations. Maybe the maintenance guy was cleaning the gutters. Maybe the wind carried ashes from someone's grill. But it didn't make sense. The ashes were fresh every morning, even on windless nights, even after it rained. Then one morning, there were police cars in the parking lot. The woman in 3C, her name was Denise, hadn't shown up for work. Her door was unlocked, lights still on, bed untouched. Her car keys and purse were sitting on the counter. There was no sign of struggle, no note, nothing. She was just gone. That night, the dream changed. I knew it the moment it started. Same courtyard, same circle, same dead firelight. But this time, there was an empty spot, one seat missing from the circle. No one looked at it, no one spoke, but we all saw it. The fire burned lower than before, the glow dim and sickly. When I woke up, my clock read 2:44 again. The next morning, we didn't talk much. People started keeping their doors locked, curtains closed. The couple in 2B said they were thinking about moving out. The jokes stopped completely. Another week passed, and then Miguel disappeared. His apartment door was ajar when I came home from work. The place was spotless, like he'd cleaned before leaving. But his phone was on the counter, screen still lit from a text that had never been sent. It said, "Don't fall asleep." That night, 2 empty spots in the circle. The fire was smaller now, just a flickering ember, barely alive. The silence felt thicker, heavier. And when I woke up, there was a faint black smear of ash on my sheets, the same gray dust that had been on the balcony. The building got quiet after that. People started leaving. The couple in 2B packed up first, driving away before sunset. A few days later, I saw movers carrying out furniture from 4A. Then it was just me and Chelsea. We tried staying awake, meeting in her apartment with the lights on, watching movies, drinking coffee. The first night, it worked. The second night, we both woke up in the courtyard again. Our hands locked together in the circle, the fire barely flickering. I started losing track of time after that. The days felt shorter, the air heavier. Sometimes I'd wake up with a faint ringing in my ears, like the sound of wind howling through an empty space. The building itself began to feel hollow, like it was losing something each time someone left. Then Chelsea moved out. She didn't say goodbye, just left a note under my door. "If you stay, you'll never wake up." That night, I was the only one left in the dream. I sat alone in the courtyard, facing the dying fire. The wind blew cold and dry, and the ashes swirled in little spirals across the ground. For the first time, I heard something other than silence, faint whispers coming from the dark windows above me. I looked up and saw faces, dozens of them pressed against the glass, staring down, all my neighbors. Their eyes were open, but there was no light in them. Their mouths moved slowly, like they were still trying to speak. When I woke up, my apartment was freezing. The clock read 2:44. My balcony door was open, wind pushing the curtains aside. The air smelled like burnt wood. I tried to move out the next morning, but when I went to the manager's office, it was empty. The door was locked, blinds drawn, phone line dead. I tried calling the property number, disconnected. I checked online, and the listing for the complex was gone, like it had never existed. That night, I didn't even try to stay awake. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to come. The courtyard looked different this time. The fire was almost gone, reduced to faint red coals. Around me, the air shimmered with heat that didn't warm. The seats where everyone used to sit were now just blackened marks on the ground. I looked at the spot across from me, the last empty space, and something was standing there. I couldn't make out its face, but it was tall, thin, its head tilted just slightly as if watching me. Slowly it stepped closer, the air hissing with each movement. When it reached the fire, it stopped, and I heard the faintest whisper right behind my ear. A single word, "Stay." I woke up screaming, my throat raw, body shaking. The fire alarm was going off, the room filled with smoke. I ran to the balcony, and there on the concrete was a small circle of ashes. That was 3 years ago. I never went back. The complex is gone now, replaced by a parking lot. I've moved 3 times since then, always far away, always in buildings with no courtyards. But every so often, around 2:44 a.m., I'll wake up and find faint ash on my windowsill. And when I close my eyes, I can still see that dying fire, just barely alive, waiting for one last seat to be filled.